and welcome to Thanet Writers. Meet Sathnam Sanghera. Sathnam is an award-winning journalist, a fellow of the Royal Society for Literature, currently writes for The Times as a features writer and has written quite a plethora of books, both fiction and non-fiction, including his memoir, The Boy with the Top Knot. Sathnam, welcome. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today.
Really my pleasure.
So, Sathnam, we just wanted to spend a few minutes talking to you. I was particularly interested in the memoir you wrote. Now, you're a fiction writer, you're a non-fiction writer, but the memoir, I'm always fascinated by memoirs. What inspired you to write the memoir? You know, what period does it cover, and what made you kind of write about it? What inspired you to write that?
To be honest, it wasn't my idea. I wrote it about 10 years ago. I think I must have been around 30. My family wanted me to marry someone of my old background. I didn't want to do it because I had a girlfriend, amongst other things. And in the process, it was someone else's idea to turn this kind of crisis into a memoir. I didn't know any memoirists. And in general, there aren't many or any Indian family memoirs. Indians are, by kind of habit, very private people. And I think the family memoir is very much a Western form, possibly an American form.
Right.
So it was someone else's idea, which I began as a kind of crisis, and I didn't really know what I was doing. So the whole thing was an accident.
Well, in that case, I mean, you're saying about it, not only did you not know any memoir writers, but it came across an accident. I mean, so where did you start with that? How did you go? Okay, I'm going to pick this period. I'm going to start with this scene, and I'm going to put in these moments. How did you select what you were going to put in and what you weren't going to put in?
Well, this is the thing. I mean, when you have a final book, the final product doesn't necessarily reflect how you wrote it. And I think the first thing I wrote was chapter 14, was having my hair cut.
Okay.
And then I think I wrote something about my father. The thing is, when you're dealing with life, it's not chronological. It doesn't fit into a neat pattern. So I just wrote everything down, which I always say is my one piece of advice to wannabe writers is A, take notes, and B, just start writing. Because you don't know what it's going to become. It kind of develops a life of its own. So the form came right at the end, really. It began as a very different thing.
So you were just, if you put in your thoughts down and then the compilation came later. How much, did you have much of a contribution from an editor involved in that? Or was it kind of you putting the structure and the order into that kind of
Massively. I had an agent who passed away, sadly, before the book came out, called Kate Jones. I had an editor called Mary Mann, whose idea it was. So they were probably more involved than normal for a book. So they really helped me shape it. And it changed so much. It bears no resemblance to what the original idea was. I think the original idea, the title was The Two of Us. And I don't know why it was called that. And this is the thing about when you're starting out, don't be put off by the idea of it being a finished book. Just start it. You don't know what's going to happen at the end of it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the memoir itself, it's a very evocative work. Having read it, it kind of really, even in me, kind of reading the experiences that you went through, were you at all worried about the reaction you might get, or was it just a case of, this is my life, I'm going to be very honest about that? Is that crossed your mind at all?
Well, I've been a journalist for a while, so I was used to doing public writing.
Yeah.
But to be honest, again, I had no idea what I was doing because, my dad is illiterate. I didn't know any writers in my family. I didn't really know what happens when you write a book. I think a large part of me didn't really expect anyone to read it.
Right.
And I wrote it for my friends so that they'd understand if my family disowned me, why I was so upset.
Right.
So I wrote it for them, and everything else is a byproduct.
I mean, talking about everything else being a byproduct, some years after you had that published, it's got turned into the BBC adaptation of that. How did that come out? What was that process?
Very slow, long process. It took almost a decade, and I bailed on it at one point because my family was going through a slightly tough time, and I didn't want them to have the attention. And then it ended up with the BBC. I didn't think it was ever going to get made, and then it did. I think there's an element of randomness to the whole thing. But I'm really delighted it is, because I think I'm also delighted it took so long, because enough time had passed to teach our family and me that it was going to be okay. Because the reaction to the book was almost entirely positive, and all my fears at the time of publication didn't really happen, or didn't become realised. And so I could, with some confidence, say that it was going to be okay if I was involved in the film.
Right, that's about the question. Is how involved were you in that process? Were you heavily involved in it?
Much more than I wanted to be.
Okay.
Part of me just wanted to forget the whole thing because it was so painful.
Right.
But I did, for my family's sake, get involved in editing the script and giving my intensive feedback.
Right. Okay.
But it was written by a brilliant writer called Mick Ford, who did a much better job than I did.
Yeah.
Because he was distant from the story.
Yeah. And actually, I saw an interview that was on YouTube, and there was a panel, a big discussion around sort of the impact it might have had on British Asians, particularly what you were saying earlier about that integration you had with not many memoirs being written by that community. What feedback have you had from your family? Now you've had this 10-year long journey. It has been mostly positive, would you say?
My family have been entirely positive. I guess the community, I say, has been 95% positive. Right. You get 5% extreme reactions.
Of course.
I think sometimes people think when you're telling your own story, you're actually conveying the community in a certain way.
Yeah.
Because we're a tiny community, this is, and there aren't many representations of what we've been through. Okay. And all I can say is that it's my story, it's not the community's story.
Understood. Well, look, Sathnam, I have got some more questions for you, but I know consciously we're running out of time and you're doing other things that day. So with that, I'm going to leave it there, although I would love to continue talking to you. So thank you so much for your time today, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about your time in Margate for the weekend, and thank you for spending time with us today.
Thank you, Matthew.
And my thanks again to Sathnam for his time, and on behalf of Thanet Writers, thank you and goodbye.